Now we have to go through graphs. What is graphs? Under graphs, we have to go through dependent variable, independent variable, intercept, gradient. Those are the main things. So, what is independent variable? The independent variable is changed by the people who does the practical. What is dependent variable? Dependent variable only depends on independent variable. For example, you are given time, it should be independent. It should be independent variable. Now we can consider intercept. What is intercept? Intercept, the symbol should be simple C. That is the gap between point where graphs cut the y-axis with the origin. This gap gives you intercept. What is intercept? The gap between origin and the point where the graphs cut the y-axis. This is intercept. So there can be 3 intercepts there. What are those? One can be positive, the other one can be negative, and 0 intercept as well. So this is like positive intercept, 0 intercept, negative intercept. That's all under intercept. Then the main important thing is gradient. What is gradient? The symbol is simple M. That is change of y value with the x is known as gradient. What is? When considering a graph like this is x, this is y. The rate of change of y with x is known as gradient. You can consider this gap is delta x and this should also be delta x. This can be delta y. According to the definition, the gradient is equal delta y divided by delta x. So, in order to find the gradient, we can consider the tangent, the tan value of this angle. The tan value of alpha gives you the gradient. So now we can conclude, in order to find the gradient of the given graph, take the angle in between graph and the x-axis, which is measured from the positive towards anti-clockwise direction. Therefore, gradient equals delta y divided by delta x as well as tan alpha. So, how would you conclude that the graph is having positive gradient, negative gradient, or 0 gradient? Here, what you have to do is, if y increases with x, there should be positive gradient. If y decreases with x, there should be negative gradient. If y remains unchanged with x, it should be 0 gradient. That is the easiest way of getting the gradient. So all these get the positive gradient because the y value increases with x. So m is positive. Considering the next instance, just like this, what happens here, that is y value decreases with x, which means gradient is negative. Considering the next one, the y value remains unchanged, which means gradient is 0. Gradient is 0. Now we can go through in order to find the gradient of curved graph. When you are given a graph like this, how would you find the gradient a particular point, a particular given point? So in order to find gradient at capital A, create a tangent at capital A, then take the angle between the tangent and the positive side of the x-axis, which should be measured to the anti-clockwise direction. So gradient of capital A, which means MA, equals tan alpha. We know that y increases with x, therefore there should be positive gradient. Considering the next part, you can consider a curve like this. You have to find gradient point like B. What you have to do? Same procedure should be followed. In order to get the gradient of point B, take this angle, not the alpha value, not the angle in between tangent and the positive direction of x-axis towards anti-clockwise direction. Now take the other way around. So tan beta gives you the gradient at B. MB equals tan beta, but make sure put negative sign. Negative sign. Now we've got clear idea about intercept and gradient and x and y values. Now we can conclude the following graphs has a positive or a negative or a 0 intercept and gradient. If you are given a graph like this, what happens here? So positive gradient, all got the positive gradient. Considering the intercept, this should be positive, this should be 0, this should be negative. Considering the next set, just like this is x, this is y, what happens? Y decreases with x. Therefore, gradient should be negative for each and every case, and the intercept should be positive. M less than 0, C equals 0. Considering the third, M less than 0, C also less than 0. Now go on to the last set. That is just like this. What happens here? Here 0 gradient and the intercept is positive. Here both gradient and the intercept have the same value like 0. Here 0 gradient, negative intercept.